Right, you're tuning in for something a little different today. We're not exactly unearthing hidden wisdom here.
No, not at all. Instead, think of us as, well, maybe gleeful archaeologists of utter nonsense.
That's a good way to put it. Our dig site, that literary monument to delusion, Mein Kampf.
Precisely. We've sifted through this document, not for enlightenment, definitely not, but to bring you back some truly staggering examples of flawed reasoning.
Yeah. Prepare yourself for, like, a guided tour of the author's most spectacularly illogical pronouncements.
It's quite something.
It is. Forget trying to, unpack the dangerous ideology for just a moment. We've been on a mission, basically, to identify the 10 most jaw-droppingly ludicrous statements.
And the 10 most, well, head-scratchingly idiotic things penned within those infamous pages.
Exactly. Think of this as your fast pass to grasping the sheer intellectual vacuity at its core. You don't need to wade through the whole thing.
And of course, we have to acknowledge the historical significance and the profoundly harmful nature of this book. That can't be ignored.
No way.
However, our focus today is squarely on its demonstrable lack of intellectual merit, the often, frankly, laughable nature of its claims.
We're examining the content itself, right? It's internal inconsistencies and just plain absurdities.
Without in any way endorsing the viewpoints expressed, just looking at the text.
Absolutely clear on that. So brace yourself. This isn't your typical insightful deep dive.
Not today.
Today, we're indulging in a bit of critical amusement, highlighting the spectacular failures of logic on display.
At the author's expense, let's be honest.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's dive straight into the 10 most ludicrous statements, shall we? Okay, kicking things off. Number 1, the author states he's only talking to followers who are already completely on board emotionally.
Right, people who already belong with their hearts.
Yeah, and now they just need their understanding to catch up, apparently.
What's fascinating here, and frankly rather revealing, is the inherent circularity of that. Well, it's not about informing or persuading anyone who might disagree or have doubts, is it?
Not at all.
It's about reinforcing existing beliefs within this completely closed loop. It's like saying, you can only understand me if you already feel what I feel.
Which immediately signals a significant bias, wouldn't you agree? It's the intellectual equivalent of an echo chamber.
Totally. Only pre-approved thoughts allowed. Okay, what's next?
Ludicrous claim number 2 is a real head-scratcher. He declares that people are swayed more by spoken words than written words.
Okay.
And that big movements are built by great speakers, not great writers.
Oh, while painstakingly writing this enormous book.
Exactly. I mean, the irony,
It's so thick you could spread it on toast. He's literally demonstrating the power of the written word through hundreds and hundreds of pages.
dedicated to arguing that the spoken word is superior.
Did the self-awareness just vanish? It's a contradiction of truly epic proportions. You'd think someone might have pointed it out.
You really would. Hang on a minute. Okay, ludicrous claim number 3. This fella, growing up in Austria, apparently couldn't wrap his head around the fact that not every German was thrilled about being part of Bismarck's Reich.
Yeah, this really shines a light on his remarkably limited perspective, doesn't it? The idea that people might have complex national identities or, differing allegiances.
Seems utterly foreign to him.
It suggests a fundamental inability to grasp the nuances of political sentiment beyond his own very narrow experience, just a stunning lack of empathy.
For anyone who didn't share his exact viewpoint, right? Number 4 drags us to this scary big city. He dramatically rants about how urban life crushes workers' souls.
Oh, boy.
And alienates them from their people, their Volk, if they stay, after having himself, by his own admission, been thrown around by the metropolis.
The level of dramatic exaggeration is almost comical, isn't it? I mean, yes, urban life has challenges, but his depiction is so overblown.
And kind of self-pitying, too.
Yeah, definitely tinged with that. It's a sweeping condemnation, lacking any real depth or understanding, especially considering his own history there.
Talk about a pot calling the kettle.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
Ludicrous claim number 5 details his youthful political education.
Yes, the schooling.
Waving flags, chanting slogans like Heil, singing Deutschland über alles, getting punished for it, the whole shebang. He presents this as some profound political awakening.
What's striking is how he frames these rather simplistic, almost childish activities as deep political insight. It's indoctrination at a very basic level.
Hardly indicative of any real intellectual engagement with politics or complex issues.
No, the early enthusiasm, it just verges on fanaticism, really, not thoughtful analysis.
More like a toddler throwing a tantrum for a specific lollipop brand.
Okay, number 6. He's absolutely aghast, just outraged, at the Reichstag imposing speech bans on Kaiser Wilhelm II.
Right, the nerve of those parliamentarians.
He calls them parliamentary geese and claims they spouted more nonsense in one session than generations of emperors could manage in centuries. The comparison is not only wildly exaggerated, but also reveals this profound disdain for any kind of democratic process.
Okay.
His benchmark for nonsense seems to be anything that isn't the unchallenged word of an autocrat. It really begs the question, who's the goose here?
Indeed. Ludicrous claim number 7 wades into the murky waters of anti-Semitism. He insists the all-German movement's hatred of Jews wasn't based on religion.
No, it was based on a correct understanding of the racial problem, apparently.
Right, but then simultaneously he says it was a tactical error to fight against a specific religious group.
This is where the twisted logic really comes into play, isn't it? He's trying to justify his prejudice with this pseudo-scientific racial rationale.
While making a purely strategic, not moral, objection to religious conflict.
It exposes the deeply ingrained bigotry just cloaked in this thin veneer of, intellectualism or strategy. The hypocrisy is quite something.
It's a truly stomach-turning bit of mental gymnastics.
Ah.
Okay, number 8 features a rather grim analogy.
Up.
Natural population limits in tough times, like famine or disease, are compared to a wise and ruthless selection process.
Wise and ruthless, okay.
Whereas trying to help the weak, the sick,
Mm.
well, that leads to a wretched race that gets progressively worse.
Wow. This is just a disturbingly simplistic and frankly cruel application of a totally distorted view of natural selection onto human society.
It's chilly.
The grandiose pseudo-biological justification for eugenics, it's both ludicrous and deeply disturbing. It shows this complete lack of compassion and a warped understanding of human value.
A horrifyingly simplistic worldview. Number 9 takes on the Triple Alliance. He dismisses it as inherently weak
Why this time?
because of the nonsense of this economic peaceful conquest of the world.
So economic cooperation is nonsense now. This sweeping dismissal of complex geopolitical and economic realities is just astounding.
His understanding of international relations appears incredibly naive, doesn't it?
Viewing economic cooperation as inherently foolish. It's a very narrow and, you could argue, quite ignorant perspective. Sounds like someone missed a few classes.
Definitely skipped economics and diplomacy 101. Finally, ludicrous claim number 10. He actually states it was fortunate for Germany
Fortunate.
that World War I started via Austria, because otherwise, he claims, the Habsburg state, Austria, might have stayed neutral to avoid its own internal revolution.
Okay, that's pure speculation, isn't it? And
Yeah.
completely self-serving, rewriting history to fit his own narrative.
Totally.
The idea that Austria's internal instability somehow presented a strategic advantage for Germany is, frankly, absurd. It's a convenient, if utterly unconvincing, piece of revisionism.
Right, 10 shades of ludicrous down. Now prepare for the truly baffling. We move on to the 10 most idiotic statements.
Yeah, okay, let's hear them.
Starting with number 1. He proudly declares his conviction, way back in 1913 or 14, that Germany's entire future hinged on, wait for it, the destruction of Marxism,
Oh, wow. Profound.
as if this were some deep original thought he'd uncovered.
What's idiotic here is the incredibly simplistic reductionism, boiling down all complex societal and political forces to one single enemy.
Yeah.
It lacks any real depth of analysis of the multitude of factors shaping a nation's destiny. Declaring a conviction early doesn't automatically make it insightful or intelligent.
Not even close. More like a broken record stuck on one simplistic idea.
Mhm.
Idiotic statement number 2. He gets all worked up, really indignant,
How about what?
about the suggesting a bit of moderation and celebrating early war victories. Maybe maintain some dignity, don't unnecessarily upset other countries.
God forbid. His apparent desire for just unrestrained triumphalism and this complete disregard for international optics is remarkably naive, isn't it?
Utterly.
It shows a fundamental lack of strategic thinking. When it comes to propaganda, managing relations, it's like celebrating so loudly you alert all your enemies to exactly where you are and what you're doing.
Tact and diplomacy, clearly not his strong suits.
Uh,
Idiotic statement number 3. He insists the key to using naked violence effectively is perseverance.
Perseverance. Defined how?
defined as the constantly uniform application of the methods for the suppression of a doctrine. Basically, just keep suppressing any opposing ideas without wavering, don't show any weakness.
And they'll eventually just disappear. Poof.
Apparently, any wavering lets the suppressed idea recover and get stronger, he says.
This is just a frighteningly simplistic and, well, brutish understanding of ideological conflict. It completely ignores the complexities of belief, resistance, the long-term consequences of relentless oppression.
Not to mention the ethics.
Exactly. The sheer lack of any ethical or moral consideration is profoundly idiotic. It's a truly brainless approach.
To winning hearts and minds, yeah. Idiotic statement number 4. He dismisses the notion, completely rejects the idea that a demobilized internationalist worker might ever join a bourgeois party.
Like it's impossible.
Seemingly oblivious to the possibility of, people changing their political views, or the existence of other ideologies beyond strict class lines.
This reveals such a stunningly rigid and one-dimensional understanding of political affiliation. He fails to account for individual agency, evolving circumstances.
Or just the simple fact that people's beliefs aren't always dictated by these super rigid structures he imagines.
He's stuck in a very narrow box, clearly.
Talk about it. Idiotic statement number 5. Upon returning to Munich after the war, he actually hoped that the revolution was just a local Bavarian thing.
Seriously, just in Bavaria.
And that loyalty to the old royal family, the House of Wittelsbach,
Yeah.
would somehow be stronger than the will of, and I quote, some Jews.
Wow, okay. That exposes a truly profound misunderstanding of the scale and the nature of the revolutionary changes happening right across Germany. It wasn't just Bavaria.
Not even close.
And his misplaced faith in these outdated monarchical loyalties, combined with his simplistic anti-Semitic explanation. It's both incredibly idiotic and demonstrates a staggering lack of awareness. Denial on an epic scale.
Truly epic.
Yeah.
Number 6. He claims you can change your language easily, learn to speak something else, but you'll still just express the same old thoughts. You won't actually change inside.
In his example.
His example is that a Jew could speak 1,000 languages, but would always inherently remain a Jew. He completely misses the nuances of cultural assimilation, identity formation.
This crude, essentialist view of identity based solely on some perceived inherent trait, like blood. It just shows a fundamental ignorance of how language shapes thought, how culture works.
His inability to grasp the complexities of identity is not only prejudiced, but frankly idiotic in its simplicity.
A staggeringly simplistic and prejudiced view of the world.
Moving on to idiotic statement 7. He asserts that Jews only praise progress when it leads to the ruin of others.
Oh, God.
And that they are the inexorable, deadly enemies of all light, the haters of all true culture. Unless, of course, their own Volk is being promoted.
This is just utterly baseless, paranoid generalization. The illogical leap from some perceived self-interest, which he completely invents anyway, to the wholesale condemnation of an entire group as enemies of civilization.
It's not just hateful.
It's profoundly idiotic in its complete lack of any rational basis or evidence. Pure, unadulterated, nonsensical bigotry.
Exactly. Number 8. He thinks the way to solve the problem of syphilis.
Syphilis. Okay, where is he going with this?
His solution requires combating prostitution, prejudices, old habits, previous ideas, general views, and not least against the lying prudery in certain circles.
Right. And his concrete plan for achieving this massive societal transformation is
non-existent.
figures. The sheer vagueness and impracticality of these pronouncements are remarkable. There's a complete disconnect between the enormous scale of the problem he identifies and the utter lack of any feasible strategy.
It's idiotic in its breathtaking lack of any practical substance. Sounds like a toddler's solution to a major public health crisis.
Not too much? Vague pronouncements.
Idiotic statement number 9. He simplistically states that people have a common right to rebellion.
Okay, when?
When a Volk is being led to ruin by its government, fine. But then he says the question of when this is the case, well, that's not decided by theory or principles.
How is it decided then?
By force and success.
Might makes right.
Basically, this dangerously amoral justification for violence, based solely on the outcome, completely ignores any legal, ethical, or moral considerations.
The idea that force and success are the only arbiters is not only dangerous, but intellectually bankrupt. Hence, utterly idiotic.
It's a recipe for absolute chaos, dressed up as some kind of profound insight. Finally, idiotic statement number 10. This one really takes the cake for self-congratulatory delusion.
Let's hear it.
He describes the first large public meeting of his movement. It was
Mm.
apparently packed with communists and independents,
Okay.
who by his own admission were mostly there to disrupt the event to cause trouble.
Right, a hostile audience.
And how does he frame this? As proof that those had come to whom we wanted to turn. Like, see? We attracted the enemy. Success.
Oh my goodness, the sheer delusion on display there is just astounding. To interpret a hostile audience intent on disruption as a sign of success?
As proof you're reaching your target demographic.
It is perhaps the most spectacularly idiotic statement of the entire collection. The inability or refusal to recognize opposition, to see a threat. It's truly something.
Completely baffling. Well, dear listener, we've reached the end of our rather unkind examination of Mein Kampf. Hopefully you now have a clearer understanding of just how flimsy the intellectual foundations of this deeply harmful ideology truly were.
Indeed. By focusing on the ludicrous and the idiotic, I think you can really see the profound lack of logical coherence, the lack of intellectual rigor at the heart of his pronouncements.
It reveals a mind prone to just sweeping generalizations, right?
Yeah.
Self-serving narratives.
And a remarkable inability to engage with complex realities in any meaningful way.
And perhaps you might agree that dissecting even the most reprehensible texts for their inherent absurdities and logical failings, while it can be a valuable, if somewhat unpleasant way to grasp their fundamental weaknesses.
And the dangers they represent, it certainly makes you wonder, doesn't it? How could ideas this shaky, this frankly idiotic, ever gain traction?
Something to think about. Until our next, hopefully less ludicrous deep dive, keep thinking critically.